Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on Conversations About America. With me today is Quinten Ford, the host of Let's Talk podcast, and Robert Gonzalez, the author of a great book called Eagles Claws for Freedom's Cause. Yeah, there you go. Welcome, fellas. Glad you could be here.
Hi, Steve.
How you doing? Glad to be here as usual.
And tonight we're going to be talking about J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI for 37, 40 years, something like that, until he died. So, Quinten, you wanted to talk about Hoover. So what is it about J. Edgar that you want to talk about first of all?
I thought that because we discussed the civil rights and going from the Civil War, and then I think that sometimes you had did it before when we're talking about certain figures. He was integral part of American history from his reign. Actually, I don't think that there will ever be a person in an appointed position that will ever have a position as long as he had it ever again. I think that most people now, when they realize what type of man he was, have a lot of disdain for him, no matter what side of the aisle politically you may be on. And I always wanted to have the discussion because I ask people that come on my show as well, was he really trying to protect the Union and well, the Republic, or however you want to say the Union? And a lot of people will say no. So I thought it was interesting and to think about him, to have a discussion about him, and realize how much he abused his power.
Definitely.
So I thought, I know all three of us would do some research on him and understanding how one man single-handedly, with the help of others, built part of our government, a law enforcement branch of our government.
Yeah.
And because he built it, he basically had free reign to spy on American citizens, basically.
It seems like he had more power than the president.
Oh, he definitely had more power.
Yeah.
Presidents.
Yeah, lots of them, several.
So it makes you really realize, like, the whole policing act in this country while he was the head of the FBI. Because we know that a lot of the states or agencies, they take their cue from the federal agencies. The way that we police in our country was basically based off of him and the tactics being used. Even in the 40s and 50s, if he said that you were communist, the Hollywood blackballing, I mean, your career was over. Your life was basically over.
And he would provide the truth or the facts as he wrote them.
Yeah. So I thought, I just think he's a very interesting character. Like we said, he was a cross-dresser, but it's weird because he probably had what we would say an alternative lifestyle, but it was unmanly to come out back then.
Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting how life is now, and it's progressed to more of a different type of society, more of a liberal, I don't want to use the word liberal, more of a freer society, to each his own. And if he was around now, he'd probably be going crazy.
Do you think he'd be popular now?
I think if he was around now, if he did have an alternative lifestyle, it would be public.
Yeah.
He would probably be the biggest advocate. I mean, and that's what's crazy about him, when you think about it. And I know that I read it was a lot of people trying to get his name off the building down there. This guy was like anti-women, fired all the women in the FBI at one point. So really, when we look at our country, did he do our country any favors? Like, if you like was to unpill what everything he did and undo everything he did, it would be a lot of apologizing going on, a lot of families that he hurt.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of people left the country basically because of him. You know, and it's funny because I used to always read how a lot of the people during civil rights, whether it was the Weather Underground people or other people who were considered radical, why would they leave the country? Why would they leave the country? I see why now, because if Hoover got his grips on you,
He had a lot of power and can definitely make your life live in hell easy,
yeah,
you know, in more ways than one.
yeah.
Uh, I also learned, and I didn't know it until I read up on it a few days ago, that he had a gambling addiction. Did you uncover that in your reading?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, how they said that he had connections with the mafia, or people would say organized crime. And he had dirt on everybody, but nobody's perfect. So they
Yeah.
probably had some stuff on him. And then when you keep reading and then read up why he didn't really fully want to investigate the Kennedy assassination and all the innuendos, and I don't like to say conspiracy theories, but all the stuff that was said during why Kennedy was killed. Him during the 60s were some very interesting times.
Yeah. You should have been here. It was, it was definitely a trip. Yeah. So what do you think about J. Edgar? Bob, do you think he was a good guy or a bad guy?
Well, I don't know as much about him as you guys do. I just know the peripheral stories that you hear pass through the grapevine over the years. I've just heard about the weird stories about him being a cross-dresser and those type of things. And I've always heard that he was anti-communist, probably at a time when it was really needed in this country, with the USSR and China and all those countries trying to infiltrate us. In that respect, it was probably good we had such an anti-communist guy heading the FBI. Other than that, there's not much I know about him. I thought I would listen to you and Quinten kind of educate me a little bit more.
Well, the biggest thing that I learned, which kind of goes along with everything else I read about him, he sent an anonymous letter to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., pretending he was a black guy and urging Dr. King to commit suicide because he supposedly sent him some evidence that he had, I guess, made up on, he come up with his own way of making the evidence that Dr. King was a fraud and he had all kinds of sex orgies. And it was a horrible, very demeaning, evil, sick letter. I mean, it's online. I read it. Have you read it, Quinten?
Yeah. He when you think how can, it's kind of like unimaginable when we look back at it now and say, how did a man get this much power in our government, let alone for this long? I mean, sometimes we may feel like a president, or definitely with the last president we had, a lot of people feel like, oh, he's got too much power. But it was, at the end of the day, some checks and balances. Even in his presidency, he couldn't do everything he wanted to do, or everything he did, or everything he said he wanted to do. But for Hoover, he did everything he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally ran around with carte blanche. I mean,
Yeah.
even in the story, they said that he would not even, if you were a good agent, if you were a good lawman, he didn't even want you to get caught.
Unless you was loyal to him.
Unless you were loyal to him. So
Who does
it's
that
like,
remind you of?
yeah. I mean, and even then, like, I'm quite sure with McCarthy, him and McCarthy probably were very close during those early days. Hoover was just interesting. Like Bob said, I'm not gonna say he didn't love the country, but I think the power and then the overzealousness where he felt he in his mind felt like the country was, under major attack by Russia, the outside influencers. So the least thing that he did not want is them to get close with the, as we would say, the dissenting voice,
Yeah.
because I believe in his opinion, they were going to try to destroy the republic.
Well, a lot of people think that he had Bobby King killed because President King, John F. Kennedy, made it to where J. Edgar would have to answer to Bobby. Remember that? He was the Attorney General.
Yeah.
And, Edgar Hoover wasn't used to answering to anybody. So he didn't like that. So, I wouldn't put it past him. He might have been done. He might have had it done.
Can you imagine, like, you're running around for 20, 25 years with carte blanche? Many presidents have lauded you, praised you for stopping the bank robberies. You've brought these, as they would say, public enemies to justice.
Yeah.
And then a new president comes and he gets his brother.
Yeah.
I mean, not to go too far from the conversation. Can you imagine that happening now? A president getting his brother to be attorney general. I couldn't imagine how people felt back then. Like, that's weird, but now you ain't doing it. It's not going to happen. I don't care how good your brother is with being an attorney, and it'll never happen. People will not allow it. I don't even think it would get past.
Why was that any different from what Trump did, putting his family in the White House? I mean,
Yeah, but those are not the family members that he had didn't have to get approved by Congress to serve.
Those are more like Stafford positions.
Yeah.
And like, could you imagine if they would have had if Ivanka or Ivana, whatever her name is, or Jared Kushner would have had to go in front of Senate and they would have gave it to him? We know they wouldn't have, but I couldn't imagine the way the parties are polarizing now for that to ever happen. That's too much. I believe, no matter what party you are, you got Attorney General is the brother or the sister of the president. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. You basically got that's his own. Yeah. Kennedy had his own police force.
I think Kennedy was jealous of all that power. He wanted as much power as J. Edgar had.
I mean, I think when you look at it, he should have been.
Yeah.
I mean, you're told that you're the president, the leader of the free world, and here it is, somebody that's under you. He knows, as we would say, where the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
I believe that Hoover had secrets on everybody. Yeah. I believe that the FBI probably keeps them things that only a select few people know.
Well, you remember his secretary burned a lot of the documents as soon as he died, shredded them rather. And
she was smart.
He had told her in advance, and she was very loyal. In the event of my death, you destroy all these records, and she did before anybody could get their hands on them.
Just imagine though the secrets this guy had.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, and then the secrets he probably had on world leaders.
Yeah. But if somebody had that much power now, they could have a lot more information because of the internet. Back then they had to do the footwork, literally, physically.
Yeah.
And nowadays they can do it.
I mean, just when you look at it, you're the man outside of him, the power and all the stuff that he did. He was the first one to get them to start the index, keeping a file on people. And, for me being a person that likes to read, you'd be amazed how many notes that a person that reads and does a lot of research, just look at you guys' desk. I can guarantee you guys got little pieces of paper with little sayings on them. And for somebody that's very OCD-ish, you start following this stuff, and over a period of time, if a name pops up in your head, Oh yeah, I wrote this about Steve on this day,
Yeah,
this day, and literally, as we would say, he had the book on everything, you know. But the fingerprint thing is interesting. Where he was part of um registering people's fingerprints and realizing that everybody's fingerprints was different. I think that's interesting.
well, that certainly has left a legacy.
Yeah,
People still
and
doing it. Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing about him. I mean, should he be off a building and ridiculed? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think that when you do speak about his legacy, you should tell it all, the good and the bad. I mean, and as Bob says, end the cross dressing.
He was gay too.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
yes, no, I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is interesting for those times. And he kept a lot of stuff on people. And like, even the people that would insinuate about his lifestyle, he was destroying them.
Yeah, yeah. And he definitely had the means to do it. He might have had a lot of people killed, who knows? And I would say there were some that tried to get him killed. I wouldn't doubt that a bit.
I don't think it'll ever be anybody more powerful than him though, with the resources.
Yeah,
Now, it's other people that are probably powerful, but they can't get to everything without somebody seeing something or saying something.
yeah,
His carte blanche was amazing.
yeah. Do you think now who was it that came after him? Was it Warren Harding that took over after him?
That was the one that didn't have no experience, right? That Nixon put in.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, that was weird. And then even Nixon, why would you appoint a guy with no law? He was from the Justice Department, no experience. Maybe Nixon had so much dirt on himself. Oh,
Yeah,
I'll get a puppet. And even up to this day, how do we know that the FBI directors feel like they don't have to answer? They feel like, oh, I have to answer the president instead of the chain of command.
yeah,
Maybe they feel like they don't have to talk to the attorney general. And it's funny because when you think about it, because of the way Hoover ran stuff and the way they all ran stuff after, this is why, even though this was the effect of 9/11. All these agencies were doing their own thing, and they said they were all getting all this information, but they never worked together. And they look what happened. And then, even now information is shared.
Yeah.
Most information is shared, and we even got a
Most of it,
branch of
anyway.
government because of 9/11.
that's what the whole Homeland
Yeah.
Security thing was supposed to be about.
Yeah.
Everybody cooperating, but I'm sure that's not working perfectly.
No.
Bob, you've been quiet. Say something.
Well, it's not a topic I'm really that well versed in. I came on just because I wanted to hear what you guys had to say about him.
I didn't know a lot about him until I've done the research this week. I hadn't really got into it, but apparently he didn't really put a whole lot of effort into squashing the mafia. He spread the rumor around that the mafia didn't exist.
No, I don't know about that. And I will say this though, I believe if anybody got to Kennedy, it was not Hoover. It was probably the ones you just mentioned.
Well, the thing that Hoover did was, what was amazing is he turned a blind eye to a lot of stuff. A lot of like the Emmett Till getting killed, even Kennedy's killing. He could have done certain things that he was known to do, like rounding people up. He just didn't pursue it, and that it's funny because that what kind of was exposed during the Warren Commission, and then they told us, as a kid, I always heard the Warren Commission. We'll find out in 2020, year 2000. It wasn't no big hoopla when the Warren Commission got declassified. So with Hoover, during that reign, the reign of the KKK and the lynchings that were going on, he wouldn't investigate a lot of stuff. He kept quiet. The only thing that he really went after was the communism angle. Yeah, the communism angle and Hollywood and Charlie Chaplin and all
That
these.
was important at the time, though. That was, don't dismiss it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very important, or we would have been taken over by the Russians and the Cubans.
And that's funny, Bob, that you bring that up because the Cold War is still going on.
Yeah. Now we brought China into it.
Yeah,
Iran.
yeah.
Um,
But I think like I said, I think Hoover is a very interesting guy, and it's gonna be interesting going forward. I do think they're gonna wind up eventually moving his name off the building. But the man left. I mean, I can imagine what's in that building it's some things that he probably his model. They probably still follow a lot of his model that he left.
yeah. Well, Trump has always said that the FBI is crooked now. He said that all along when he was president and still does.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and like I said, when his abuse of power, I mean, the government, unfortunately, to try to apologize for all the stuff and harm that he's done to innocent people would probably shake what America's basically been built on, because he had a reign. Like, he was like a tyrant who didn't, how you read about tyrants who had a tyranny for all this time and he killed all these people. Well, Hoover probably didn't kill a lot of people from what we know of yet. But far as like 30, 40 years of just unrelentless, locking people up, kidnapping people, COINTELPRO, spying on American citizens, and then saying they were anti-American.
I don't remember reading anything about how much money he had when he died. Was he a millionaire? Or, that much power, he should have been rich. But then he had his gambling addiction, so maybe not. And
a guy like that probably just has unlimited amount of money.
Yeah. And when he had gambling debts to pay off, since he was in cricket himself, Mafia probably had a lot of stuff on him, and that's what saved him a lot of times, perhaps.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say about him. I just wanted us to discuss him, because I just thought you can't tell a story about this country without mentioning J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah. Let me read some of that letter here if I can get it big enough to read it. This is the letter he wrote to talk King into committing suicide. It starts out by saying King. And then it says, in view of your low grade, abnormal personal behavior, I will not dignify your name with either Mr. or Reverend or Doctor. And your last name calls to mind only the type of king, such as King Henry VIII, and his countless acts of adultery and immoral conduct lower than that of a beast. That's the way it starts out, and it gets worse as it goes. So he definitely wanted to really cut him down to size, didn't he? To say the least. To say the least. Do you think that he had anything to do with Dr. King's death?
Well, yeah. The United States government got found guilty in the court of law. And I'm quite sure that he was one of the main culprits.
Yeah. It's hard to believe that he was.
If the juries had found the United States complicit, he was probably the main one, because I doubt the CIA. No, I ain't gonna say I doubt the CIA. Let me stop that. But I highly think that he was complicit in names and James R. Ray and being a patsy, and I mean, it was so much cloak and dagger stuff back then. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Why do you think he had it in for Dr. King? You think it was a racial thing, or you just didn't want him to get more power?
I think it was more. It was some racial. I believe the race had a lot to do with it. In some circles, Steve and Bob, a lot of black people feel like Hoover might have had black in him, but he was racist, and he was ashamed of it. That's been a wide thing amongst a lot of black people that do research on him. Feel like
He was
might have
racist and he was ashamed of being racist?
he was ashamed of being black. He had some black in him. He was ashamed of it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I
So
didn't-
so with King, I think that with King, it was a race issue, and also it was more of this guy is dissenting against the norm, against he's too dangerous, and if he was to get whispered by Russia, I think some of that stuff, like Bob said, I think some of that stuff was so serious. Definitely when they used to catch spies back then, like it was, you'd find guys and you may arrest 5-6 guys and none of them speak English, and they were all spies, German spies, Russian spies, all over the country. So I think Hoover's biggest fear was, I cannot allow the dissenting voices in this country ever hook up with, it's funny I'm about to say this word, people who are propagating socialism.
But did he have the same amount of, did he put as much effort into Malcolm X as he did the story in Dr. King? I didn't find out anything about that.
I think that there were some things that recently where Malcolm X's daughter said that they felt as though they had wiretaps, and one of the guys that was in his entourage was an informer FBI undercover FBI agent. I don't know if he didn't care about Malcolm more than he cared about Martin. I think it was more because Martin was more South, and that's where they were probably focused more. Because it wasn't, the TV, the internet, none of that stuff. The internet definitely wasn't around. But I think that he had a hit list, man. Like you would now, if you sat back and thought about it, why would he go after actors? But he went after actors because they have influence. It influence in their movies. A lot of these actors, basically, you could just go off the cuff and just, a guy like Charlie Chaplin was the speechless influencer. He can influence millions of people. So if he thought Charlie Chaplin was really messing with Russia, like he did, Hoover, from what he believed, he had to stop these people. I mean, he had 12,000 people on the list at one time.
12,000 on his hit list?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, could you imagine, take those 12,000, let's just say 4 of them are still not around, but they're around through their kids and everything. If they were really threats, I mean, you're talking about this man. In his eyes, he cared about America, and then so much so that they said he had dirt on one of the justices at one time. Like,
I'm sure it is.
could you imagine?
I mean, all of them.
Just dirt on everybody. People probably used to call, "Hey, Steve, why don't you fire this guy?"
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you get a call from him. "Yeah, I just heard your conversation."
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way it happened nowadays. I'm wondering how many people nowadays, if somebody like him was discovered to be that powerful, how many people would approve of it? There would be a lot of people that would agree with you.
I think Steve, that now a lot of people would agree with him. I think 9/11, people got to the point where they didn't care. If you told a person that their neighbor was a threat to you and how you live, it will allow people to give up what we could see their civil liberties.
Mm.
I think I think we're very gullible now.
Yeah.
I think we give up too much of what we would consider our freedom in the name of fear.
Who was it that said if you give up your freedom for security, you're going to lose both of them? Who said that?
Was
Somebody.
that Thomas Jefferson?
It might have been. It might have been. Yeah, if you give up your freedom for security, you're going to lose both of them. And that makes sense.
I mean, this guy was so powerful, he got the president to stop habeas corpus. This guy, I mean, it just, who would, like, why would you lobby the president during wartime to give up habeas? Like, that's like I can imagine now if the pandemic, he would, you talk about we were on lockdown, it wouldn't have been no essential workers. This guy was around. Everybody, if you do not come outside. I mean, really, and this is where our country, the way that they, as people in law would say, what was intended by the Constitution, it has to have balance. Our country has to have balance. It has to have. It can't be too far right. Can't be too far left. Can't be, as they would say, fascist. Can't be socialist. Because if you don't have that balance, it will become, as they would say now, like a totalitarian state. Very easy.
You know, I seen today, I was seeing online, I found some information, newspaper articles and such, that back in 1918, during the Spanish flu, that there were laws in some states, some cities around the United States, if you were not wearing a mask, you would be arrested. That was a surprise to me that they were that scared of the plague, and it's killed 1/3 of the people in Europe and half the people in the United, well, not half, but a lot of them. So,
I think
they did that mask thing seriously back then.
I think one of the things that happened, not to take away from Hoover, but one of the things that happened, different from those days to now, in spite of all the America's, as I would say, the black eye, I think people trusted the government at one time. I don't think the majority of people trust the government anymore.
I think they trust him too much now.
You think they trust them too much now, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't trust it, I mean, why would they be wearing masks just because the government tells them to? You know.
Well, I think that's a whole nother thing. I mean, the information about and I hope, Steve, one day I hope we could discuss the American Medical Association and how that was created in this country, and up until now, and how Big Pharma runs the world basically.
Yeah.
And what Bob's saying is right. Like, you basically, in the best interest of business, is why people have to wear a mask, because it has nothing to do with a virus. A virus is going to mutate. It has to. That's what a virus does.
That's what it does.
I had to tell somebody that today. They looked at me. What do you mean? I said, do you know if you get a cold and everybody in your house catches the cold from you, you can't catch that same cold? I said, you know why? Because your body gets used to it and you can't catch it no more. Same thing with a virus. A virus continues to mutate, and the only thing that you got to fight it is something in our bodies that was created by something bigger than us called the immune system. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, but you know, when you
flu shots we get every year, the doctors just guess at what strain of flu is going to be going around.
But you know what's funny about that is I know I'm probably a little bit younger than you guys, right? When you talk like this and you just mention it, you just try to get people to think a little bit about what's going on and use their own logic and be objective. They want to say, "Oh, you're anti-vaccine." I'm 47 years old. It's no way I could be anti-vaccine. I took vaccines to go to school in this country. But now we get older, you just question it. Would you be
Anybody that's
questioning?
been in the military has had plenty of shocks,
And speaking of that,
a lot of shocks.
which is interesting, it kind of ties in with what we're saying, Steve. What about Hoover? I think it's crazy if you understand the Kennedy legacy in this country. That right now, Bobby Kennedy's son is ostracized for speaking out against vaccines.
I know that's amazing. Yeah, I would have never thought he would have taken that view and put it out there publicly like that. Yeah.
And he has a interesting website, the Children's Defense League. They sent out interesting articles.
Yeah.
I actually read a book that he forwarded on the COVID vaccine, and we just need to everything needs to be reined in. The earth is purging right now, and people got too much power to control everything. Now Hoover had power, but no, this power we're fighting is this is world power, world trying to control people and thoughts, and but I'm not anti-vaccine. I mean, if the vaccine was available and more of people in the medical field trusted it, I just don't feel like I feel if people have a right to their opinion, and the dissenting voice is what built this country.
Yeah.
Figure this: we're technically all traitors right now to Britain. We're traitors to Britain up to this day.
I hate to hear people badmouth protesters. I mean, we're a bunch of protesters. I mean, that's what we are.
But what they did is that, like Bob said, is that we've trusted our government for so long, and slowly but surely, and then you get the people that love the law, and they've been telling us for the last 15, 20 years, 30 years, you guys are giving up your civil liberties slowly but surely. You're giving up your rights, and then boom, you need a passport. You need a documentation to go eat in New York City.
Yeah.
So you've been vaccinated.
That's not going over too well either.
It's not going to go over well.
Can you imagine being a restaurant owner and trying to enforce that?
I think restaurant owners won't try to enforce it. I think restaurant owners, given that what we've just been through, they're just trying to make money, man, take care of their families.
Yeah.
They ain't trying to enforce it. And the cops shouldn't, the officers, it's not their job to be enforcing that stuff.
Yeah.
Now you're allocating police to do that. And
yeah, it's a crazy world. And J. Edgar caused it all. We'll blame it all on him.
it's a bunch of J. Edgars running around.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's anybody in our country right now that has that much power. And I hope I'm right, but I don't think there is. You think there is, Bob?
I think right now the citizens are reclaiming the power that's granted to them by the Constitution.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think you see that every day growing, and I think it will continue.
And that's the thing that's interesting is you, regardless of your political affiliation, that was one thing that the last president was very proof with doing. Learning, showing, and this aisle, they were focused on trying to make this guy the racist guy. He was trying to expose how our rights are being taken. And it's kind of like, okay, let me just sit back and look at what's going on. Was he right or was he wrong? I mean, and then when you start questioning things, oh, you're a T supporter. No, I'm just questioning. I just want to know. But it's amazing that we're talking. We went from Hoover to understanding that that much power for anybody, one person in particular, a group of people, it's dangerous. It's literally
What's
dangerous.
that old saying? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
There was another saying: if you want to judge a man's character, give him some power, or something along those lines. I think Abraham Lincoln said that one.
And it's funny, like what Bob said about the people or trying to take back our freedoms. I really do believe the American people are getting fed up. Like I really believe, like, you know, you go out, you see people, in my opinion, my everyday opinion, not get triggered by TV, because TV triggers you. It's called programming for a reason. But if you go out every day, work, a store, whatever you're doing, everybody's friendly. Everybody treats everybody nice. You have incidents where people are crazy, but for the most part, everybody just wants to live the American dream and be left alone and leave people alone. That's it. And when you start messing with people and infringing on their persons, it's a problem. And sometimes you got to be careful not to poke the bear a little too much. I think that American people are going to get. I think they're going to get tired of using race as an excuse to get people to fight each other. I think people are realizing, like, hold up, this is my neighbor. We look out for each other.
And now they got the people who have the vaccine against the people who don't have the vaccine. So they're dividing us that way now.
They're cunning, man. These people are very, very wise with what they
Methodical.
do. Yeah. And then when you think about it, you'll really have somebody that knows about viruses, because I don't know anything about the medical field. My old lady works at the hospital, but I know a little bit about viruses, a little bit, and I'm high risk because of my asthma. I know viruses mutate though. That was common biology stuff we learned in school. So why would, if I know viruses mutate, I've always got a flu shot up until like 6 years ago because it kept getting me sick. So if I get a vaccine and I know viruses mutate, what is the vaccine that I just got for? They gotta shoot you with the stuff. They gotta shoot you. So because what they're doing, and you know, you guys know, they're trying to trick your immune system. But you can't trick what nobody else but something bigger than us created. Let the immune system do its job. That's what they should be doing. Teaching us how to strengthen our immune system by eating right and doing certain things, but no, that's too easy. That's where the money
Talking about the herd
Yeah.
call it
herd immunization.
Yeah, there you go. Herd immunity.
How you call it human beings herds?
Oh well.
Well, the other day, our commander in chief, he said that he gave a number on how many people were vaccinated. The number he gave, and I believe he has a little onset. The number he gave was more people in the country.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I don't watch news at all. I refuse. I haven't watched the whole news program probably in about 6 years. I can't watch that stuff. I get a lot of my news from, believe it or not, the internet, Twitter, and just
well, you know, if it's on Facebook, it's good. You know, they check that stuff out.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Get on Gab. Gab is the freest of them all.
Really?
Yeah.
Do what, Bob?
get on Gab. Gab is the freest expression. Twitter censors, Facebook censors. Gab, you can say whatever you want. In fact, Quinten, the guy who runs Gab is from Scranton.
Okay.
His
You
name is
said
Andrew
GAB, is
Toby.
that GAB?
GAB, yeah.
I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah, it's a totally free speech platform. I think you'll enjoy it there.
I mean, and that's really, we were all taught these survival skills at a young age, but that's really what it came out to, man. People just want to just leave me alone, man. I see.
Trying to survive.
That's why I'm surprised Bob moved down there. He was perfectly fine up here.
Winter's too long and cold up there.
I'll tell you, because I work up there in Wayne County every day, and my phone drops service. And Bob, I work right every day. I can see the Lackawaxen River, and I say to myself every day, I could see somebody living up here off the grid because nobody knows you're there. No cell service. Just stay away from all the BS and But
it
we
can
want
be
to.
done. I mean,
Yeah. You ain't got to worry about Hoover and his Hooverites.
Yeah.
Hooverians.
Yeah, Hooverians.
You remember that Unabomber? He lived in Montana for years.
Yeah.
Without water or electricity.
Yeah.
Have you seen the thing on the news lately? Some guy who has been a homesteader on some private property for like 25 or 30 years, they've ran him off and put him in jail.
Wow.
For trespassing. He's been there for 25, 30 years, something like that, and now they've arrested him. Crazy.
I mean, but just think about that. You got people that can live like that, and then we have a homeless problem in America.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I mean,
well, I don't know about where you guys are, but here there are big, huge, empty buildings that have been empty for decades. Like where there used to be a Kmart or Walmart or something. All kinds of empty buildings that could be used to take care of the homeless.
Yeah.
Could be, But anyway, I've enjoyed our conversation, gentlemen.
Likewise.
And Bob, it's your turn to pick our topic for next week, brother.
Okay, I was thinking, why don't we just do current events? Like maybe we could talk about the protests that are happening around the world. What they're doing about COVID and what's happening here relating to COVID and the vaccines and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, sounds good, brother.
Bob's put me on a research mission this week. Yeah, because like I told you, Bob, these people are, you question stuff. They'd be like, I told somebody, I said, yeah, I knew about the Delta variant 6 months ago. They said, no, you didn't. I said, I'm telling you, my wife works at the hospital, bro. Like, they know this stuff. This stuff is not new. I mean, it's just, but anyway, that's going to be an interesting thing because I just was looking at something the other day, but I'm going to check Gab out because I can imagine what's on there.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, I will too.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, y'all have a great week. And it's always nice having these conversations. I always learn something.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me three.
Well, y'all have a great week.
You too.
Folks, thanks for tuning in to Conversations About America. Please continue to tune in and spread this video all over social media.
Sounds
Have a
great.
good one.
Great. Take care.
Good night.